Josh Hennig back here on another edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, midweek edition of the show, which means we will be talking more Eagles football today. Dave Weinberg joins us coming up for a Weinberg Wednesday. He had the week off last week. He is back this week, so we'll get into it with him at 6:15. Sixers play the Hornets again tonight, again in Charlotte. Kevin McCormick, Sixers beat writer for Clutch Points, will join us coming up at 6:40 today. So we got a full show. And of course, you can join the conversation as well. Text board is 609-403-0973. You can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. Glad to have you guys on board the show today. This weekend, the Cowboys are playing the Washington football team. And the NFC East, while it's technically still up for grabs, I think it's fair to say that the state of the NFC East is this. If the Cowboys are who we think they are, then they are going to win the division. Not just because they have a better roster, but because they'll probably beat Washington at least once, if not twice. I have a lot of trouble believing in Washington at this point, honestly, and I'll explain why in a moment. But with the understanding that the Cowboys are probably going to win the division, that opens the door for the Eagles to get in at the 7 or the 6 seed, because in order for the Cowboys to win the division, they have to beat up Washington, which helps the Eagles get into the postseason if the Eagles can do their job. Now, the Eagles are on a bye week this week. And for the Eagles, if you stick to the formula that got you here, you can keep winning. The question is, do you guys out there listening on 97.3 ESPN FM, if you're listening on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, or you're watching me on YouTube at 97.3 ESPN, wherever you're getting me, I ask you guys this question. Do you trust Nick Sirianni to stick with the winning formula? Or are you concerned that Nick Sirianni, coming off his first bye week as a head coach, might overcompensate and implode this thing? Because to me, that's really where the rub is. To me, the problem isn't the Eagles. The problem is still the coach. I don't know who Nick Sirianni is still. I don't know for sure how good he can be. He's still young. He's still inexperienced. He still doesn't have it all together. So while, listen, we can talk about this, all the scenarios we want about the Eagles and about the NFC East and about the NFC playoff picture, because the reality is the Eagles are currently the 8th seed, and they are a half game behind San Francisco and Washington in the playoff picture. And they are a full game ahead of the Minnesota Vikings. They are 1.5 games ahead of the Panthers and the Falcons and the Saints, who they have tiebreakers over all those teams. So I'm not worried about any of those teams catching the Eagles at this point. If the Eagles do their job, if they take care of their business, you can pretty much guarantee that they're going to either be in the playoffs or just miss the playoffs. The problem is, do you trust Nick Sirianni to not complicate the situation, to not overcompensate, and to do his job? Listen, the math is the math. Anyone who's going to argue about the math, I can't help you, okay? I can't solve your problems in life. But the math is reality. You can't bend it or shift it or change it. But what you can do is you can ask the question about the variables, because there are some legitimate variables in all of this. And one of those variables is the head coach. I've said multiple times that I don't know if I fully trust Nick Sirianni. And it's not because I personally hate Sirianni or don't like him or anything like that. Putting any, specific biases or opinions or subjectivity aside, the one thing we know for sure is that Nick Sirianni has never been a head coach before this year. That means that Nick Sirianni is the one variable that we don't have an answer for. I don't know how he handles a bye week. I don't know how he'll respond from a bye week. I can only hope that Nick Sirianni does the right thing, which is don't reinvent the wheel. But we don't know what Sirianni is going to do just yet. Now, on the flip side, the Sixers have a game tonight, and they should win. Okay? I think that we all understand that with the Hornets, who are still very shorthanded, I think the Hornets gave the Sixers their best shot on Monday night. I don't know if they can do that again 2 straight games. But for the Sixers, they also need to figure some things out. They need to make a decision about who they are moving forward. See, while the Eagles have a winning formula, I think the Sixers don't actually know what they're doing. Not because of any reason, but they haven't played long enough together. I'm serious. How many of these games has the full lineup been together? And I don't even mean Ben Simmons. I mean Maxey, Embiid, Harris, Curry, Green. The Sixers are 10-3 when Joel Embiid is on the floor. We do know that much. You have a team in the 76ers who are currently buried in the standings. Just last year, they were an Eastern Conference contender. A year later, they're basically middle of the pack. And part of that is because of Ben Simmons. Part of that is because Ben Simmons is not around and you are missing him. But another reason is because I think that we didn't appreciate the lack of depth this roster has. And as we are counting down the days to December 15th, the day that you are allowed to start trading players who were signed and acquired in the offseason, I think that you need to find out, if you're the Sixers, how serious you are about winning. If you're serious about winning, then you cannot sit on your hands, because you did not bring in Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey to be the 5th, 6th, or 7th seed and lose in the second round again. But with that being said, the Sixers are in a very different situation than the Eagles. The Sixers have a lot of tough decisions to make. The Eagles, they just need to stay out of their own way. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up on the other side, a Weinberg Wednesday with Dave Weinberg, followed by at 6:40 tonight. Sixers beat writer Kevin McCormick. So we got Eagles, we got Sixers on tap, and of course you could join the conversation at 609-403-0973 is the text board. You could DM into the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. We are live on YouTube at 973 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night.
Sunday on Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. It's a crucial Week 14 showdown from our nation's capital as the Washington football team hosts the Dallas Cowboys. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action as these two longtime NFC East foes square off. Can Dak and the Cowboys earn another tough road victory, or will Washington make up ground in the standings? It's the Cowboys and the Washington football team. If it's the NFL, it's right here.
It's NFL Sunday on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 12:30.
offer ever. Now till the end of the year, Bennett Chevrolet is paying a minimum $8,000 for any trade. That's the starting offer. $8,000 for any old bomb you can get to our lot towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. Think about that. If we're paying a minimum $8,000, imagine how much more we'll pay for a good trade. And we'll buy yours even if you don't buy ours. Bennett wants your trade. So grab your title or payment book and get here today. Looking for new? We all know the high prices dealers are charging these days, but Bennett still refuses the opportunity to charge a penny over MSRP. Stuck in a lease? We can get you out early. Every make and model. Come see what your vehicle's worth today. There's absolutely no obligation and no pressure, because our non-commissioned sales staff is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Game Night, of course, being brought to you by my friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. The retail sportsbook features 5 betting windows, a large video wall, sports ticker, 20 self-service betting kiosks, and various lounge seats. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino off the boardwalk in Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Talk more Eagles now with Dave Weinberg. A Weinberg Wednesday is back. Dave had the week off last week, but he is back this week here on 97.3 ESPN as Dave, the Philadelphia Eagles, and it would help if I pulled off the cover screen there. Dave, the Eagles, the good news is they got a win going into the bye week. The bad news is this is a fandom city that finds drama in the strangest places, and this time it involves a guy with a mustache and a bomber jacket.
Yeah, I think it's cousin Rico, right, or Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah,
yeah, it's there's nothing.
I don't really remember half that movie because I was asleep. So,
oh, really? Okay. I thought it was an awesome movie. Anyway,
sorry,
but yeah, Gardner Minshew, yeah, he's definitely got the fans' interest, and there's nothing that stirs up the fans like a quarterback controversy, even though there really isn't one. But yeah, I mean, to his credit, he stepped in there and did a very good job. And, as you know, it's very difficult to find a quality backup quarterback in the NFL, and the Eagles finally have one.
Dave, how do we balance the conundrum that Eagle fans have? Because there's a handful of fans who are saying, hey, we should start Minshew instead of Hurts. But yet that would mean they have to give credit to Howie Roseman for getting this backup quarterback.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening, Josh. I think they're committed to Jalen Hurts for the season. This determine whether he's going to be their franchise quarterback moving forward. All credit to Gardner, and like I said, there's going to be a fan base out there that the minute that Jalen struggles, which is might even happen like in his next game back against Washington, that the fan base will be calling for Gardner. But I really think that Jalen has earned the right to at least play out this season, as long as he's able to do so health-wise, and then Gardner will be available to step in if needed. But otherwise, I don't see him taking the field.
Yeah, you mentioned in your extra point column over at 97.3 ESPN about how, whether it's AJ Feely, Jeff Garcia,
right.
One point it was Mark Sanchez. The city always has had this affinity for the backup quarterback. So I don't mind people,
sure,
doubting over Gardner. It's fun. It's a cool conversation. But at the end of the day, he did it against the Jets. And the Jets defensive coordinator said yesterday that his defense allowed 15 missed tackles in the game on Sunday. So congratulations. You beat a team you were supposed to, Dave.
Right. And and congratulations to them. But yeah, somebody made a good point about that after the game, that, who's to say that Jalen Hurts wouldn't thrown for 300 yards or run for 300 yards for that matter against that putrid Jets defense. And yeah, I mean, they beat the team they're supposed to beat, unlike the week before when they didn't, and losing to the Giants. So it was nice that they got back on track just a little bit, but I wouldn't read a whole lot into it yet, because they still have some tough games coming up to close the regular season.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll get to those in just a bit. But I want to ask you, Dave, about the defense, because I thought in the first half, the defense looked horrible. Second half, they looked great. So, but you also did it against the Jets. So what do we read anything into what we saw from the defense on Sunday?
Oh, I think you take the fact that Jonathan Gannon was able to make some adjustments. Like you said, Zach Wilson had a tremendous first half. He matched Gardner Minshew touchdown for touchdown, basically.
Right.
But they were able to the defense was able to rebound in the second half and shut down the Jets. And that's I'm impressed by that. Where that Gannon is able to make those kind of adjustments. And earlier in the season, it seemed like he kind of stuck to one thing the whole game, even if it wasn't working. So I was glad to see that he was able to show some flexibility there.
Dave Weinberg,
but it was the Jets. But again, it was the Jets, like you said.
Right. It was the Jets. Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg 19. Extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Dave, spinning it ahead, I want to ask you the same question I asked the audience. I want to know, do we or can we trust Sirianni to come out of the bye week and not overcompensate or overthink or try to get too fancy? Because you have a winning formula, Dave. If you just stick with it, you can keep winning games.
Right. Run the ball, right? It's not rocket science. And, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if Sirianni is willing to accept that or not. I hope he is. But when you have this much time off, there's more time to think. It's more time to scheme, create, devise some stuff that maybe you think the other teams aren't ready for. I'm of the opinion that you stick with what works, and until teams can stop it, then there's no reason to deviate from that. They've run the ball extremely well for the last 4 weeks now, and I would stick with it against Washington on when they come back from the bye.
Yeah, I mentioned this on a Tuesday show. I understand that it was a crazy weather situation, but I think the Patriots, along with the Colts, along with the Eagles, have proven that in today's NFL, you can run the ball and be successful. Teams are they're just so bent out of shape about stopping the pass. They don't have the personnel. There's no Jeremiah Trotters or Levon Kirklands out there anymore. Everybody's a coverage linebacker. So to me, I just say keep running the ball until they stop you.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Like you said, you look at the Colts and look at a couple other teams where they just run the ball down your throats. Jonathan Taylor from nearby Salem, as a matter of fact, is having a sensational year for the Colts. And the Eagles are right there. I think they're probably the top rushing offense in the league right now. And Miles Sanders is playing very well. I mean, I think they missed Jordan Howard a little bit, but Boston Scott had made some rows when he got the chance to carry the ball a little bit. Made up for that costly fumble against the Giants. And you have Kenneth Gainwell if you really need a third back end there. And you're going to have Jalen back too, who's as good a running back as any of those guys. So I just don't see – it was nice to see Dallas Goedert get involved. It was nice to see Quez Watkins make a couple nice catches the other day. But I just use them as supporting weapons. I run the ball until people prove that they can stop it. And so far, nobody has.
Now, you mentioned Washington. They play the Cowboys this weekend, and folks can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. To me, I feel like if the Cowboys do what we expect them to do, they'll take the Washington football team out of the conversation if the Eagles also do their job. To me, this comes down to if you win the games you should, the Eagles can make the postseason, Dave. I don't think it's rocket science, like you said, to figure this out.
So you're saying you think the Eagles should beat Washington twice?
They should at least beat them once, in my opinion. I think Dallas can beat them twice.
That's possible, I guess. I'm not willing to go that far yet.
Okay.
I think Washington is extremely underrated. I think they're the team that you really have to worry about as far as the wild card race is concerned. I don't think the Eagles are going to win a division. I think that's still Dallas's, but
I agree 100% with that. Yeah.
Yeah, but Washington is really on a roll here now, and they seem to have discovered something in Taylor Heineke. Their defense is a little banged up, but they're still making plays. And even without Chase Young, they're still stopping the opposing offenses. So I'd be a little bit worried about Washington if I were the Eagles.
Yeah, Washington's so weird. They lose Chase Young, and all of a sudden their defense got better. I mean, they were for the first few weeks of the season one of the worst defenses in scoring allowed per game. And ever since they came out of that bye week, they haven't allowed more than 21 points. And that's against Tampa, Carolina, Seattle, and Vegas. 4 teams, well, 3 of the 4 at least, who have shown an ability to score this year. We know Carolina at this point is just falling apart. They fired their offensive coordinator, for goodness sake.
Right.
But,
right.
Still, Washington, like you said, they found something. It's just interesting to find out, can they keep it going? Because we mentioned they play the Eagles twice. They play the Cowboys twice. And I think it's safe to assume they're going to beat the Giants in the last week of the year.
Yeah. And as far as the Eagles are concerned, where they have 4 games left, I think they could probably win. Oh, boy, I don't even want to go that far. I mean, there's a chance they lose all 4. There's a chance they go 2-2. But they're not sweeping Washington. They never do, even when as bad as Washington is. Even at their worst, they always play the Eagles tough. The Giants seem to have their number in the last couple of years. I mean, that's not the way it's gone for the last decade or so, but it just seems there's something about the Giants, especially if Daniel Jones is able to come back. I don't know if he's out for the year or not, but if he is, then I would expect the Eagles to win. And I don't think the Eagles are going to beat the Cowboys in the regular season finale if Dallas needs the game. So they have their work coming out for them. I think they really have to pull off a couple upsets here if they're going to make the playoffs.
Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Dave Weinberg 19. Extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Dave, spinning it off to the league in general, I want to get a little bigger on that running thing, because you've covered the NFL, for a long time. You've seen a lot of football, and it seems, I don't want to say the league is turning back the clock, but it seems like the coaches who are adapting to what's going on in the league, whether it's Belichick or Sirianni now or Frank Reich in Indianapolis, they seem to see what's going on in this league and they're taking advantage of it, while teams, for example, like the Saints, are having trouble adapting. So, is it going, you think, moving forward, that we're going to see more teams running the ball potentially?
I don't know if it's going to evolve back to the 60s when you threw the ball, or even less Monday night for that matter. Yeah, but I could see it going, becoming a little bit more balanced. Like for the last decade or so, it's always been, everybody's been stressing the passing game and the need for a franchise quarterback, what have you. Running backs weren't, I wouldn't say they were an afterthought, but they weren't as high a priority. They probably placed more emphasis on a running back and their ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. But yeah, I mean, I could see, because of the way that things are going with Indianapolis and New England and Philly, there might be some more teams that are willing to take a closer look and maybe just at least have a more balanced attack rather than throwing the ball all the time.
Dave, you also cover the boxing scene. I wanted to ask you about the news that came out yesterday. The Hall of Fame class for 2022 has got some pretty big names on it. Roy Jones Jr., James Toney, Miguel Cotto, they're the headliners. Just a couple thoughts on those guys and their careers and your thoughts on them getting into the Hall.
Yeah, actually, I voted for all of them. I'm a voting member of the Boxing Hall of Fame. And yeah, congrats to those guys. I mean, Roy Jones, that was a no-brainer for me. A multiple division champion, unbeatable in his prime. And I thought he was certainly deserving. Miguel Cotto, up and down a little bit at the end, but we know when he was hot and in his prime as well, he was a fantastic fighter. I forget who the third guy was.
James Toney.
Oh yeah, James Toney. Yeah, that was kind of it wasn't like a really difficult decision for me, because I always thought he was a tremendous fighter. But I know some people weren't as infatuated with him as I was. But again, multiple division world champion. And when he was focused, which wasn't all the time, but when he was focused, he was as good as it gets. So I had no problem voting for all three guys. I think they're certainly deserving.
Well, I think that's part of the problem with these conversations, Dave, and that is someone like you're looking at the entirety of someone's career, whereas some people, they're only remembering specific moments, or they have a recency bias, stuff like that. Like, obviously someone like Cotto was not as good at the end of his career than the prime of his career. I don't think that's something silly to say, but for some reason, people like to remember certain negatives against people, and they don't want to take the entirety of their career and measure it that way.
Yeah, that's true. And it's, it's purely subjective. I get that. There are people who favor a certain style of fighter or they might just become enamored with somebody, like Arturo Gotti, for example. Very exciting, very huge fan draw, but I don't know that he was the best. And a Hall of Fame to me measures excellence. I mean, he did win some world titles, but he was never like the best of his era. So, but yeah, that's the way it is with all Hall of Fames, regardless of sport. You're going to get guys who favor somebody and guys who don't. I mean, I always thought it was an absolute disgrace that Dick Allen did get into the Hall of Fame the other day.
Yeah, I still don't understand that. I mean, I saw Jason Stark's piece, saying, his reason why Dick Allen should have been voted in. And I feel like everything he said in that piece was 100% correct. But back to the boxing,
Sure, I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. Obviously, Hall of Fames are Hall of Fame conversations. It's like, I don't understand why some people like the story. Like, we'll use the baseball thing as an example. All the writers who wouldn't vote for Jim Rice because he wouldn't give them interviews, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's
stupid stuff like
ridiculous.
that. And
Yeah.
like, I saw people online saying, why was James Toney voted in? And I'm like, wait a minute. Didn't James Toney go through like a 7-8 year period where he didn't lose at all? Like, to me,
Right.
you don't lose for 7-8 years. It's not because you're just happen to, be winning by accident. No, you're doing something pretty significant there.
No, he was dominant. He absolutely deserves to be in there. And you're right. I mean, there was a stretch there where nobody could touch him. I know some local fans will probably argue that Dave Tiberi beat him in Atlantic City. I was at the fight. I actually scored it for Tony. I got a lot of flack for it, and that was one of those times where he had to really stretch to lose weight at the last second. Really wasn't in his top form, but was still good enough to beat Dave, I thought. Anyway, it was a close fight, but I thought Dave won it. Man, but anyway, regardless, yeah, it's regardless of the prejudices or the opinions, you just have to look at the records and look at like you said, their career in their entirety, and it's pretty clear that James belongs to be going to Conestoga for the Hall of Fame ceremonies.
Absolutely. One of the names that got voted in yesterday, it was announced that I was excited about, was Holly Holm, because I feel like she gets overlooked because she's been in MMA for as long as she has, that people sometimes forget about what she did in her boxing career. And I think an argument can be made that, I know a lot of people love talking and looking at Clarissa Shields now, but you could argue there's no Clarissa Shields doing what she's doing now if it wasn't for what Holly Holm did before her making that transition from boxing to MMA. And I think Holly deserves to be in that conversation as one of the best female combat sports athletes of the last 20, 30 years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Christy Martin probably blazed the trail for women's boxing back in the day. Layla Ali continued it. But yeah, you can argue that Holly Holm has blazed the trail in her own way by, like you said, by making the transition back and forth from MMA to boxing. She was really the first to do it. Clarissa might be able to do it at some point. It doesn't happen yet. Losing her second MMA fight, but yeah, Holly's certainly deserving of that stuff. She's one of those, like I said, pioneers, trailblazers that women's boxing has had over the years, and she's certainly deserving of it. Also, I believe I agree with you.
I mean, how many? I feel like, what was it? 7? I think it was 7 different belts that Holly Holm won when she was a boxer.
Right. I mean, you can. I guess the skeptic would argue that there really wasn't a whole lot of competition at the time. Women's boxing doesn't have the talent pool that men's boxing does. So, sometimes you'll find people fighting the same person, like, 4, 5, 6 times even, because there's really not a suitable competition. But yeah, I mean, you can only fight who's put in front of you, and it's not her fault that there aren't, more competitors or contenders out there. So she deserves credit for what she's accomplished.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
And it's like college football. People are like, oh, Cincinnati doesn't have a good enough schedule as the others. And it's like, but they beat everyone in front of them. Like, you can't hold
absolutely
this idea that people value a good loss better than a win. To me, it just flies in the face of sports altogether. Like, Herm Edwards says, you play to win the game, right? Like, whatever happened to winning has value. And it's just like, people want to find something. They want to find something wrong with everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati's been catching a lot of flack. They beat Notre Dame though, and they beat everybody else that was put in front of them. So they certainly deserve to be where they are. I don't know if they can hang with Alabama, but we'll find out.
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think they're going to hang with Alabama at all. But then that being said, who do you think wins it all in the college football playoff?
Boy, it's tough. I was a big Georgia guy up until last week. I got a feeling that maybe they'll be able to turn it around and find a way to win the whole thing. Probably a rematch with Alabama in the championship game and maybe pull it out. But I think it'll be one of those two, probably Alabama or Georgia. I don't think Michigan's capable of it.
Michigan's a weird team, though. I don't know what to do with them half the time. I mean, they spent half the year making no sense why they were winning, and then the other half of the season just crushing people. So
true.
It's hard to read Michigan, but I'm with you. I think Georgia did it all year, and I mean, honestly, I thought they were going to beat Alabama last week. So
me too, yeah.
But then Alabama goes out there and takes advantage of the one thing Georgia's not good at, which is they have a slow pass rush. So if Georgia can change up their pass rush, maybe they have a chance. But we'll see.
I wish you'd have told me that before I bet on Georgia.
Well, listen, I had Georgia winning too. It wasn't, but they brought up on the broadcast, or was it the radio broadcast, that Georgia has the slowest pass rush in the SEC. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, now you tell me. Yeah,
right. That's true.
I didn't hear that information all week long. I heard it like 5 minutes before kickoff. It's like, thanks, guys.
Yeah, really.
Dave Weinberg back for another Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN at Weinberg19 on Twitter. Check out his extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Dave, good to have you back for another Weinberg Wednesday. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks a lot, Josh. I really appreciate it. Real quick, I just wanted to express my condolences to the family of Vincent Jackson, local Atlantic City boxing trainer who passed away a couple of weeks ago. Not many people knew him in national circles, but in the local community, he was very well respected and very well regarded. And it was a sad thing that he passed away. But I just wanted to point that out if I could.
Absolutely no problem, mate. Listen,
all right,
it's Weinberg Wednesday. You have an open platform.
Oh, thanks, Josh.
All right, take care.
I'll talk to you next week. All righty, you too. Take care.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. We'll get back to the Sixers coming up next. They are back in Charlotte to play the Hornets again. But can they play better? I mean, they barely beat the Hornets on Monday. Can they do better tonight? Well, that's Kevin McCormick, Sixers beat writer for Clutch Points on the other side right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of CLC, and we are live on YouTube at 97.3 ESPN.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Bible with a slam. Matisse Thybulle with a two-hand tomahawk jam.
The Sixers are in Charlotte to face the Hornets. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN.
Chickies and Pete's, your favorite local sports bar. Home of the best in-game experience. Go where the players go. Catch all the action at all Chickies and Pete's all season long. Live football shows and Eagles pep rallies in South Philly. Every Monday, the Brandon Graham Show, plus the Chickies and Pete's Players Lounge with Miles Sanders or Darius Slay. Chickies and Pete's is a proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles and the official caterer of Eagles training camp and the First Trust Bank Club at Lincoln Financial Field. Go where the players go. Head to chickiesandpete's.com for the full schedule. College football Saturdays at Chickies and Pete's are on. Chickies and Pete's, your favorite local sports bar. Enjoy the college football $5 game day menu every Saturday starting at 11 a.m. World famous crab fries, tasty roast pork sandwiches, Chickies boneless wings, and more. Plus Coors Light and Blue Moon ice cold draft beer specials every college football Saturday at all Chickies and Pete's. Chickies and Pete's is a proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles and the official caterer of Eagles training camp and the First Trust Bank Club at Lincoln Financial Field.
Hey guys, if you enjoy great whiskey and love peanut butter, you need to try Screwball Peanut Butter Whiskey. With its surprising sweetness, smooth finish, and creamy peanut butter flavor, this American whiskey proudly bucks convention as the black sheep of the whiskey aisle. Screwball's unique sweet and savory flavor definitely pushes boundaries. Learn why tomorrow's stories begin right here. But let me warn you, a night or afternoon with Screwball will definitely get nutty. Enjoy responsibly. Screwball Spirits, LLC, San Diego, California. Whiskey with natural flavors, 35% alcohol by volume.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Sixers play the Hornets tonight. Hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins coming up at the top of the hour. Tom McGinnis on the call. Sixers, yeah, they won on Monday, but they barely won on Monday. I mean, it was Gordon Hayward playing defense but shooting horrible on offense, and Kelly Oubre basically turning into the modern-day version of Stephon Marbury. It was a ridiculous game on Monday. So how do the Sixers bounce back from a win that they kind of shouldn't have won? We'll ask Kevin McCormick right now. He covers 76ers, formerly for 97.3 ESPN.com, now with Clutch Points. Joins us right now on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, how you doing today?
Josh, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, but I'm a little concerned about the 76ers because, you know, I had Brandon Scoopy Robinson on my show last night, and the word he used about the Sixers is they're disconcerting where they are right now. How concerned should we be about the 76ers in their current state?
I think it's tough to say just because of how things have played out this season. There hasn't really been a large enough sample size to grasp just how good this team could be or what their quote-unquote ceiling could be at their current iteration. Because on one hand, you can look on the opening weeks of the season where the Sixers were playing phenomenal. They were playing like a collective team. Guys were empowered. They looked like a deep team. They were leading the league in three-point percentage. They had the league's best offense. They were atop the Eastern Conference. And then you could look at that rough skid they went through where they went through the 6-game losing streak. Guys were banged up. Some of the roster was out due to protocol. So I think just because of how things have played out in this opening month of change of the regular season, it's kind of tough to really kind of stamp down what this team could be so far.
When you think about this team so far, they're 10-3 when Joel Embiid is on the floor. So obviously Embiid, he's still playing at a high level, but I'm concerned that he's carrying the load so much in some of these games. I mean, there was the one game he had over 40 points. The first game back, they go to a double overtime and they lose to Minnesota. And like at the end of that game, it's just so deflating. And that it's like, I don't want to see Embiid go out there and have all these amazing games and then lose them, Kevin.
Yeah, and it's the double-edged sword of the predicament that the Sixers are in right now because obviously no Ben Simmons, despite his playoff flaws, he's a very good regular season player. He affected winning on a nightly basis. He himself was a part of why the Sixers were atop the Eastern Conference last year. Tobias Harris has struggled too, so you've really had to rely on Joel Embiid a lot as of late. And while it's great to see him kind of take on that franchise cornerstone mantle and lead this team and really put them on their back for some gutsy wins in their latest matchup, you have to wonder the long game because the goal for the Sixers is always get Joel Embiid to the playoffs as fully healthy as you can. And due to the predicament that they're in right now, it's this weird catch-22 of you love what you're seeing from Embiid right now. You love seeing him, play 40 minutes and carry them in overtime periods, hit shots in the clutch, but how much of the tank are you letting out now in the regular season because you need to win games in December? And how is that going to affect you in April?
It's a great question. And I think it's a question that the Sixers have to answer because, Kevin, we are a week away from the December 15th deadline where you can start trading anybody. Pretty much anybody can be traded except for Malcolm Brogdon because of the weirdness of his new contract. But still, Daryl Morey was not hired. Doc Rivers were not hired to just make the postseason and lose in the second round. Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey came here to try to win a championship. And I just had trouble believing they're just going to sit on their hands and let Ben Simmons rot all season long. So I'm assuming that between December 15th and what was the deadline? February 10th, I think.
Yeah, something around that. I believe it's late February, early March, like somewhere around there.
Well, the point is that whatever the NBA trade deadline is, I feel like we're going to see something happen. Whether it is specifically Ben Simmons or something related to Ben Simmons, because I can't wrap my head around the idea that Morey and Rivers are just going to be content with things as they are.
Absolutely. Outside of the Ben Simmons situation, this is still a team that views themselves as a contender. So I think Daryl Morey is going to move with the mindset of a contender. He's going to make any kind of possible upgrades that he can, whether it's swinging a star trade involving Ben Simmons or it's continuing to work in the margins. Something is going to be done, because while you can say the Ben Simmons thing can drag on as long as it wants because of the contract length, Joel Embiid's prime is only going to be so long, and you don't want to scrap a year. I know a lot of people are throwing out the quote-unquote sneak tank idea, but that is not the right approach, because you don't know how many years of Joel Embiid you're going to have at your apex. And I think if they sit on their hands and ride through this as is and just hope for the best, that it could end up costing them a prime year of Embiid. And we're seeing him lately. He's still the MVP runner-up. That guy is still in there. We saw him against Charlotte, 43, 15, 7, completely took over in the fourth, scored and assisted on all points in overtime. Yeah, it was a depleted Charlotte Hornets squad, but we're still seeing the pieces of that dominant player that we saw last season. And I think as he continues to get into a groove and work himself back to 100%, that we're going to see the Joel Embiid that we saw last year. And the Sixers really need to strike while the iron's hot, because it's not every day that you have a top 10, just generational talent in the league.
Kevin McCormick joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin MCC NBA on Twitter. Speaking of the Hornets, Kevin, tonight they are back at it with the Hornets, but they have another game tomorrow. So they got a game in Charlotte, and they got to run back out there tomorrow. Very weird schedule they're in the middle of. What is a fair expectation of the 76ers for tonight's game and then tomorrow's versus the Jazz?
I think depending on how things go tonight will dictate what their expectation should be for tomorrow against the Jazz. But listen, like you said at the top, their first game against Charlotte should not have been as close as it was. Joel Embiid should not have had to play 40 minutes. He should not have had to put up the stat line that he did to walk away with a one-possession win in overtime. And now heading into the second matchup, Charlotte is still equally as depleted. Yes, they've had a day of rest, but they're still going to be down 5 rotation pieces. They're starting backcourt and arguably their best player in LaMelo Ball. The Sixers need to take advantage of this circumstance. This needs to be a quote-unquote old-school load management game in Doc Rivers' eyes, because you're going to have a tough matchup tomorrow against Utah, so they cannot mess around tonight. This is the game where they need to come in, take care of business, get guys off their feet early, because like you said, they have to zoom right back to Philadelphia for a matchup against a tough Utah Jazz team tomorrow night.
The good news is Tyrese Maxey is back tonight. He is in the starting lineup with Curry, Green, Harris, and of course the aforementioned Joel Embiid. More Sixers coverage from Kevin McCormick. You can follow him on Twitter at KevinMCCNBA. Check out all of his coverage of the 76ers for Clutch Points. And he joined us right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Kevin, I always appreciate you coming on, and hopefully the Sixers make tonight easier, because I got to tell you, for me watching on Monday, that was kind of painful.
You and a lot of other people.
Take care of yourself, Kevin.
All right, you take care, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, being brought to you by my friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. The holiday season is in full swing, and you can catch all the football, basketball, UFC this weekend, and more at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Get your game face on and score big. When sports betting done right, with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more, only at the FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. As promised, I want to get to some of you guys' comments before we get out of here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Danny HT says about the Eagles, the reality is the Eagles are 0-2 in the division, and they were their 2 worst games of the. I don't understand this winning formula you keep talking about. They ran the ball good against the Giants, scored 7 points. Well, it's a winning formula because the only games they have won this year has basically been either they went crazy offensively against the Falcons in the first game of the season, and then pretty much every other win they've had is running the ball. Am I supposed to judge the entire season off of 2 losses, a Cowboys loss, which was an embarrassment, and a Giants loss where the offense played pretty bad and the defense played really well. So it is a winning formula. Almost every win the Eagles have had this year is because they have run the ball effectively, and Hurts has been part of that running attack. So am I supposed to just ignore the fact that they won other games altogether? I think Dan HC are being a little aggressively harsh. The reality is the Eagles are the best running team in the NFL. The Philadelphia Eagles have a better point differential than almost more than half, actually, of the NFC. They have a point differential of plus 46. The only teams with a better point differential than the Eagles this year are the Cowboys, the Bucks, the Cardinals, and the Rams. No one else has a better point differential than the Philadelphia Eagles. They are better than the Packers. They are better than the 49ers, who are ahead of them in the standings right now. Way better than Washington, who's minus 51. So yes, that qualifies as a winning formula. Colin LBI chimes in and says, I thought the Sirianni hiring was not one of the better head coach hirings of the past offseason. It seemed more talk than walk at press conferences. It seemed like he was a great leader, but leading the team to exceed their Vegas win total and the commitment he made to the run after realizing what kind of team he should give the Eagle fans some excitement. He's obviously making some smart moves, was able to run the game plan he wants when you all hear Laurie and Rose play, they want to throw the ball. Colin LBI finishes saying Eagle fans should have confidence in what they've seen this year from Sirianni. Well, it's one vote of confidence for Sirianni. I'm telling you, I'm jury is still out on Sirianni. I am. And I think, a lot of the people who want to bring up, Minshew versus Hurts, you forget that 2 of Hurts' worst games this year were also 2 of Sirianni's worst games as a play caller this year. So it's hard to judge Hurts when the play caller telling him to run certain plays did a bad job as well. I'm not vacating Hurts' bad game against the Giants or anything else, but I'm just saying jury is still out in Sirianni. I'm not sold on the guy. All right, I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Sixers basketball coming up at the top of the hour. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on 97.3 ESPN.